Hello everybody, my name is Erica and I'm one of the co-founders and registered migration agents here at Bravo Migration, and today I'm here for this lunchtime Instagram live to talk about the hot topic of the week. On Monday, the Department of Home Affairs announced changes to sponsorship visa holders and their eligibility when it comes to applying for a permanent employer visa. So I'm going to give you a bit of background on why this change has happened, why it is so important, and most importantly, in the first place, why some people who are in Australia on a sponsorship visa cannot move on to a permanent visa. So let's go back to 2017 when huge changes were announced for the then sponsorship visa called 457. So the 457 visa is the original sponsorship visa in Australia. It doesn't exist anymore. It was abolished in 2018 and it was replaced by a very similar visa, also a temporary sponsorship visa called 482. So the 457 visa had been implemented back in 1996, and for many years it was a great visa for employers to source international talent and for international migrants to stay in Australia working in their occupations, in their fields, and then later obtaining a permanent visa to stay in Australia permanently. So it was a great pathway for PR for many people who wanted to stay in Australia for the long term, and it was a great tool for employers who back then already knew that there's not enough people in Australia to fill and the demand that we have with for workers. There's less people than we should have. So there's a very big employment boom at the moment after the pandemic, but back then it was already a very hot job market for job seekers, but not so much for employers. So for many years, the 457 visa was a very successful visa in this scenario. With time, however, a lot of employers and employees started abusing the system and lodging not so genuine visa applications, and a lot of bad things happened. This visa got a lot of bad press, and over the years we saw government and industry and unions asking for changes. Even though many changes were implemented over the years, it was not enough. The program was still being abused, if that's the best word we can use. And in 2017, the government, the then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, announced that this visa was going to be abolished and replaced by a new visa. Back then, we didn't know what visa would replace the 457. We didn't know how that visa would work. It was a very gray period in terms of uncertainties. But staggeredly, then by March 2018, a new visa came to replace the 457. That's the current sponsorship visa called 482. Not many requirements changed from the 457, from the 482, but the most important change that affected individuals and people like you who might be looking at staying in Australia, the most important change was the fact that not everyone who is sponsored in Australia on a 482 visa could move on to a permanent visa. So before 2018, anyone who got a 457 visa could apply for a permanent employer visa if the employer wanted to nominate them, which in most cases happened. So after 2 years working for the same employer in the same occupation, most people could approach their employer and say, look, now I want to stay here permanently, and would you nominate me? And the legal reason behind this And that's why I'm here today, to make the complex legislation easy to understand for you, because I know lots of people are talking about these changes online, on social media this week, but no one's really explaining what's happening. So the biggest change in 2018 was that we had one occupation list for the 457 visa, and that same occupation list was applicable to the permanent employer visa 186. There was the natural progression for someone coming from a 457 and wanting a permanent visa. What they did in 2017 when they announced the abolition, even before the 457 was replaced with the 482 visa, they split the list into two, and that's what we have today: the medium and long-term occupation list, where people get sponsored on a 482 on the medium-term stream, and the short-term skilled occupation list, where people get sponsored on a short-term 482 sponsorship visa. In practice, the medium-term stream is for occupations that are in high demand, and the person who applies for that visa is granted a 4 years visa. And the short-term stream is for occupations that are not so much in demand, and the worker, the visa holder, gets 2 years instead of 4. They have an option to extend for another 2 years, but in the end, only those occupations in the medium-term list, medium and long-term list, medium-term stream for the 482 visa can apply for a permanent employer visa. So this, in my opinion, and the opinion of my team here at Bravo Migration, was the most earth-shattering change that happened in 2017. The 457 being replaced by the 482 visa, really in practice, there were some changes, but nothing too extreme. This, however, was an extreme change. So since then, business chambers, the Migration Institute of Australia, business leaders have been lobbying with the government to go back to how it was, because we still need workers in Australia, and we still need workers for the long run, not just for 2 years here and 2 years there. We need skilled workers permanently. We still need that influx, and nothing was being done by the Department of Home Affairs. When the pandemic hit and the borders closed in March 2020, we didn't welcome any temporary visa holders for almost 2 years, from March 2020 to December 2021, when students, working holiday visa holders, and sponsorship visa holders started returning to Australia. So this is almost 2 years without a very, very important stream of skilled people that used to come to Australia. So what happened? If you're watching me today and you're here in Australia, you know what happened. We don't have enough people to work. Employers of all industries are desperate for people with high skills and even low skills. We see cafes and restaurants closing for a week, sometimes more, because they don't have staff to even wait tables. From that up to, scientists, IT, software engineers, accountants, people working in marketing, a whole number of industries. So finally, now that the borders reopened in December for these workers, the government came to its sense and said, okay, if we want to keep talent in Australia, if we want to keep skilled people in Australia and help employers and business industries and the like, we have to change legislation in relation to the permanent visa. So this Monday, today is the 24th of March, is a Thursday, but on Monday, there was an announcement that this just happened. The government expanded the options for people to apply for a permanent employer visa coming from a sponsorship 482 visa. So people who were here in Australia during the pandemic from February 2020 to December 21, when we reopened the borders, those people, if they are sponsored on a 482 visa now or in the future, even if their occupation is on the short-term list, which doesn't really lead to a permanent visa, these people will be able to apply for PR. So this is massive, and there's a large cohort of people out there who will qualify for this, who are already sponsored by an Australian employer on a 482, or who might be thinking about getting sponsored and who might be thinking, why am I going to get sponsored if after 4 years I'm going to have to leave? It may not be the case. You may be able to stay and apply for PR. So there's still some time that we need to see what the policy around this legislation will be. But our understanding of the legislation is that anyone in any visa, if they were here, this could be an option for them. But remember, it's not because you were here on a student visa that now you can get PR. If you were here for 12 months during the pandemic, you still need to find an employer in a skilled position that has to do with your education and work experience background. And even if you are in a short-term occupation, you may be able to get PR. Now, if you're here already on a 482 visa and you thought, I don't have any chances of getting a permanent visa, it may be that now this will be an opportunity for you. So recapping, those people who were here during the pandemic from February 2020 to December 2021, and who were here for at least a year, if they get sponsored on a 482 visa, or if they are already sponsored on a 482 sponsorship work visa, then these people may be able to apply for PR if the employers want to nominate them, and after they have worked on a 482 visa for that sponsor. Now, I was just talking to a client who has been here sponsored for 3 years, but she's been on a 482 for 2 years and then on a bridging visa for 1 year. Will that bridging visa time count? If you look at the policy for the permanent visa, the normal policy, time spent on a bridging visa from a 482 to another 482 counts, but we can't confirm 100% because the policy hasn't been published yet. But it looks like that will be the case. So there will be many scenarios where people may want to combine time they've been working here. The best thing to do is to give it a couple of weeks until the department publishes policy and talk to us so we can look at your scenario, the legislation, the policy, and create a plan for you. But this is amazing news, very good news, and we were really hoping the government was going to recognize the contribution that international students, backpackers, and sponsor visa holders made to Australia and the workforce and employers while they were here during the pandemic. So amazing news. As I said, I turned the comments off, but if you have any questions, I thought I had one question, but the question disappeared. If anyone has any questions, I can answer a question. Otherwise, we're always happy to have a chat with you and see if this is a good opportunity for you. I'm going to be saving this to our Instagram account so you can watch it again and understand if this is a pathway for you. Thank you for watching, and get in touch with us. Hopefully we can help you get your permanent visa. See you later.